It's 3 in the morning and you're still awake. Your chest feels heavy. Your thoughts won't shut off, but they aren't going anywhere either. They just keep circling the same small loop. The light from your phone feels too bright. You think about getting up, drinking water, doing anything, but your body says no. You stay still. And in that stillness, something has happened to you that you probably think of as broken. A malfunction. Chemistry gone wrong. That's one story, and many people have lived inside it for years. This matters because the story you carry about your own pain shapes how you fight it. Get the story even slightly wrong, and the fight changes. So today we are asking a fairly uncomfortable question. Did depression serve a survival purpose? Not is depression a useful metaphor. Not can depression be reframed positively. The actual evolutionary question. Did this thing the human mind does, generation after generation, on every continent, in every culture we have ever recorded, ever do something for the people who carried it? Stay with me. Let's find out properly. The story almost everyone carries is that depression is a glitch. A chemical imbalance. A brain wiring that went wrong, like a circuit failing. You fix the chemistry with a pill, and the circuit starts working again. It's a clean, comforting story. Except that's not actually how it worked. We have evidence from dozens of species, hundreds of studies, and thousands of years of recorded human history, and the more we look at it, the more depression looks less like a malfunction and more like something the mind does deliberately. Start with one of the strangest parallels in biology. When your body is fighting an infection, your immune system releases little messenger molecules called cytokines, basically chemical signals that travel from the site of an infection up into your brain. When those cytokines reach the brain, they change your behavior. You get tired. You withdraw from others. You lose appetite. You stop moving. You get low. You get foggy. That constellation of symptoms is called sickness behavior. Here's what's wild. It overlaps almost completely with the symptom list for depression. Lethargy, withdrawal, anhedonia, that is the clinical term for not being able to feel pleasure. Cognitive slowing, even social withdrawal. Robert Dancer, who has spent decades studying this, has written that what we call depression may not be a separate thing from the immune response at all. Your brain may be doing something it inherited, in part, from the way animals have responded to infection for millions of years. The implication is uncomfortable. The thing we call depression may be older than the human mind as we know it. Now let's talk about rumination, because this is one of the most developed theories in the field. And it will change how you read your own thoughts. Two researchers, Paul Andrews and J. Anderson Thompson Jr., proposed something in 2009 they called the analytical rumination hypothesis. Their claim was simple. When you face a complex problem that won't resolve on its own, a relationship you can't figure out, a career path with no good option, an interpersonal situation that has gotten tangled, your brain deliberately switches into a slower, more repetitive, more analytical mode. You think about the same problem over and over. You scan it for angles. You test small possibilities. You run mental simulations of how different choices might play out. Andrews and Thompson argued that depression is the cost of that process. A mind that ruminates this hard stops being able to do anything else easily. Energy drops. Mood drops. Sleep breaks. Because the brain is occupying itself with a problem it can't tunnel past. The implication is that the obsessing you do at 3 in the morning may not be a malfunction. It may be a mode the mind enters on purpose. And the cost, the heaviness, comes built in. Now here's something that almost nobody talks about, and it reframes everything. A pair of evolutionary psychiatrists, Anthony Stevens and John Price, built something called rank theory of depression. And it has been extended in important ways by researchers, including Lucine Slaman. Their argument runs like this. In any social species with hierarchies, wolves, primates, early humans, losing a confrontation is dangerous. If you keep fighting when you've already lost, you can die. So evolution selected for a mechanism that flips the script. When you've truly lost, your body and brain automatically trigger a withdrawal. You submit. You stop trying. Your posture changes. Your hormones shift. Your mood sinks. They called this the involuntary defeat strategy. And here's the part that matters for our question: it looks like depression. The same low mood, the same withdrawal, the same passivity. Their argument is that the depressive response is essentially a hardwired negotiation switch. It happens when the conscious mind keeps trying to win a fight that the unconscious mind has already registered as lost. The implication is that depression may be, in part, an old mammalian system for stopping you from repeatedly throwing your body into situations it cannot survive. A pressure valve. A pause. So let's look at the evidence from one more angle, what some researchers call the psychic pain hypothesis. Researchers drawing on the older effective neuroscience work of Jacques Panksepp and developed by thinkers including Mark Soames have argued that what we call psychological pain is not a metaphor. It feels like pain because it shares machinery with actual physical pain. There are overlapping brain regions. There is overlapping opioid response. And pain is adaptive. Pain teaches you to avoid. So what is psychic pain teaching you to avoid? The argument runs loss. Loss of attachment. Loss of status. Loss of a future you were counting on. The aching, the heaviness, the sinking feeling are signaling states. They tell you in a way you cannot ignore that something important has been lost and you have to change course. The implication is that the agony is the message. Quiet it down too early and you can miss what it's telling you. Now here's something that almost nobody talks about. Every one of those systems, sickness behavior, rumination, the defeat response, the pain signal, has analogs in non-human animals. We can induce depression-like states in mice by social defeat. We can induce it in primates by separation. We can induce it in fish by manipulating their hierarchy. The pattern predates Homo sapiens by millions of years. And that tells us something uncomfortable. Whatever depression is, it is not a recent invention. It did not arrive with smartphones, with social media, with capitalism, with the modern diet. If it served no purpose at all, natural selection would have acted on it long ago. So the puzzle isn't really whether it has a function. The puzzle is what kind of function could ever justify the cost of the suffering it produces. Now let's talk about cross-cultural evidence, because this is where some of the more romantic claims tend to break, and where the picture sharpens. Anthropologists have documented depressive-looking syndromes in every culture they have ever studied thoroughly. The Kung San hunter-gatherers of the Kalahari had it. Rural Chinese villagers had it. Inuit communities had it. The ancient Greeks wrote about melancholia 2,500 years ago. The cross-cultural consistency is itself some evidence of an evolved function. If it were a glitch, you wouldn't expect it to look so similar across radically different ecologies and social structures. You'd expect more variation. And this is genuinely important. The variation that does exist is not noise. In some cultures, depressive episodes are shorter and embedded in close kin networks. In others, they are more severe, more chronic, more isolating. The underlying function appears to be there. The expression of it is local. That distinction is going to matter when we get to the nuance. Stay with me on this next point because it's the hardest one, and I want to take it seriously. If depression is adaptive, then why does it kill people? Why does it culminate in some cases in suicide? This is the argument evolutionary critics always reach for. And it is a real argument. The honest answer is that adaptive does not mean safe. The body's pain system is adaptive. and the pain system can still drive a person to do terrible things. Fever is adaptive, and fever can kill you. Vomiting is adaptive, bulimia is not a gift. A response can serve a function on average across thousands of generations and still be destructive to individual lives. There are several working hypotheses about why suicide occurs at all in a system that evolved to keep you alive. One is that in certain social situations, entrapment, undefeatable threat, severe loss with no path to recovery, the suicidal signal shifts away from a cry for help toward an exit. Most suicidologists, I think correctly, argue that suicide itself is not in any meaningful sense adaptive. Most treat it as a tragic malfunction, often amplified by alcohol, by isolation, by a culture that has shed the older encircling rituals that used to catch the falling. The function of depression, in the model we've been walking through, is to slow you down, redirect you, sometimes rescue you. Killing you was not the design. Now, and this is essential, so I'm going to slow all the way down here. There are real things you have to hold on to if you're going to take this seriously without letting it become a TED Talk reframe. First, and this cannot be repeated enough, the evolutionary account of depression is not a treatment plan. Saying the mind is doing something on purpose does not mean it is doing the right thing for you here today. Some depressive episodes are long. Some are severe. Some are clearly off-kilter with the actual problem in front of you. The same way your immune system can attack your own body, the same way your pain system can become chronic, the depressive response can short-circuit. Second, this framing has been misused. It has been used, sometimes carelessly, to tell people in genuine distress that they should just think their way out. That is not what the science says. The science says the mind is trying to do something for you. It does not say you have to do it alone. Third, and this is the part clinicians will sometimes whisper but rarely say plainly, if the mind is genuinely engaged in a slow, costly, deliberate process when someone is depressed, then the worst thing a culture can do is to rush them. The worst intervention can be the one that treats the heaviness purely as noise to be silenced. Because that heaviness may, in many cases, be the signal. Now let's return to the central question. Did depression serve a survival purpose? The honest answer the evidence allows is probably yes, but with qualifications so important they almost outweigh the yes. In ancestral environments, when a person was facing a complex, slow-to-resolve problem, an unsolvable interpersonal conflict, a serious illness, a genuine loss of status or attachment, the depressive response appears to have done something useful. It withdrew energy from current goals so the mind could reallocate. It offered a costly signal, a heaviness, to self and to others that something was wrong. It halted fights the body could not win. It conserved resources in roughly the same way the immune system conserves resources during infection. There is no single mechanism. There are multiple overlapping systems, each carved by selection, each doing something on purpose. What this does not mean is that every depressive episode is adaptive. What it does mean is that depression is not, on its face, an enemy we should treat with contempt. It is closer to a weather system, sometimes accurate, sometimes destructive, always produced by something. Step back and look at the whole inventory of human suffering. We have pain so we don't destroy ourselves. We have fear so we don't walk into predators. We have grief so we rehearse the loss of something we love. We have loneliness so we seek each other out. Each of these states hurts. Each of them, looked at purely, is something a person would want gone. And yet each of them, on a longer arc, is doing something for us. Depression may belong on that list. Not as a gift, not as something to romanticize, but as part of the way a reflective species stops, sometimes long enough to see what it has lost. That pause is the human condition. You are not broken because you can do it. You are human because you can do it. The question was never whether depression deserved to exist. The question is whether we have learned to listen to it while it is still here.